Right. Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty interesting today.
Yeah, looking forward to this one.
We're going to be looking at the Qerena community, specifically their approach to childcare.
Always a fascinating topic, right?
Right.
How different cultures handle this.
Yeah, exactly. And what we have is this document that outlines their protocols,
Okay.
particularly in cases where newborns are, for whatever reason, deemed uncared for, which is a very interesting phrase right off the bat.
It is, yeah. It piques the curiosity, doesn't it? Makes you wonder about the circumstances.
It really does. And that's kind of what we're hoping to uncover in this deep dive.
Absolutely.
It seems like this document offers a glimpse into how they balance, individual choice with the responsibility to the community.
Right. A classic philosophical dilemma playing out in a very specific cultural context.
Exactly. So maybe we can start with like their fundamental stance on life itself. Where do they stand on the whole, pro-life versus
Right.
pro-choice spectrum?
Well, from this document, it seems pretty clear they're a pro-life community. But there's a caveat. They do mention these exceptions, right? Made on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
For what they call special risks.
Special risks.
Yeah. So that immediately begs the question, what constitutes a special risk? And who gets to decide that?
Yeah, it feels like we're stepping into some pretty complex territory here. Like what kind of situations might lead to a child being considered uncared for?
Exactly. And that's something we might need to explore further. Perhaps there are other sources, historical records, or even contemporary accounts that could shed light on that.
Right. It's like we're seeing just the tip of the iceberg here. But let's stick with the process for now. Yeah.
Sure.
So say a parent decides they can't raise a child. What happens? What's the next step?
Well, first and foremost, the document emphasizes going to the family, like really exhausting all options with the next of kin before anything else is considered.
Makes sense. It's like a built-in safety net, prioritizing those family ties above everything else.
Exactly. Blood is thicker than water, as they say. And it does contrast sharply with, say, more individualistic societies where the emphasis might be on individual rights and autonomy.
Right, it's a very different approach.
It is. Now, if it turns out no next of kin is available or willing to take on the responsibility, the child is then offered for adoption within the broader Qerena community.
Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. There's a specific system, right?
Absolutely. They have a tiered system for potential adoptive families.
Okay, break it down for us.
Well, first, dibs, so to speak, are given to barren or sterile couples.
Makes sense. Give them a chance to be parents, it seems. I don't know, sensitive to their situation, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. There's an element of compassion there, right? Addressing a specific need within the community. But it also raises questions about societal expectations. Like how much pressure is there within Qerena culture to conform to certain family norms?
All right, that's a whole other can of worms.
Exactly.
But what about families that already have kids? Where do they fall in this?
So they're the second tier, you could say. Priority goes to those with fewer than 5 children and fewer than 4 co-wives.
Hold on. 4 co-wives.
That's what the document says.
Wow. That's a lot of family dinners, I guess.
To say the least.
Okay, but jokes aside, this system really highlights how dedicated they are to keeping those kids within a loving family.
It does, and it makes you think about what family even means in their culture.
Yeah, unconventional, might be putting it mildly.
You think?
Just a little. But okay, so we've got family, we've got the community. What happens if none of those options work out?
Well, the document says they have another layer to their system.
Interesting. Tell me more.
The child can be raised by the temple maidens.
The temple maidens, within their temple system.
That's right. It seems they play a role in childcare, too.
Okay, now this is fascinating. Does this suggest a history of communal child rearing in their culture?
It's hard to say for sure from just this document.
Right.
But it definitely hints at a long-standing tradition of shared responsibility.
Yeah.
These maidens are likely central to the community's spiritual and social life, so their involvement in child rearing just underscores that collective approach to, well, raising the next generation.
It's a really intricate system, isn't it?
It is, yeah. They've got all these safeguards in place, family, community, and even this spiritual safety net.
Wow. But let's say all of those fail. What about adoption outside the community? Is that even on the table?
That's where it gets really interesting. The document mentions adoption by a Qerena individual married to a foreigner as a possibility.
Okay.
but it's clearly not the preferred route.
Interesting.
An adoption by two foreigners, practically unheard of, almost taboo, it seems.
So there's a clear desire to keep things within the culture.
Absolutely. A strong emphasis on maintaining that continuity.
But couldn't you also argue it's about protecting the child? Making sure they're raised within the Qerene value system?
What? Oh, definitely. It raises questions about what's truly best for the child, especially when cultural identity is a factor.
It's a fascinating dilemma. We often talk about individual choice, but here the collective good seems to take precedence.
Right. And this document, it really forces us to confront those different perspectives.
So, stepping back a bit, what do you think this all tells us about the Qerene view on, well, the balance between individual choice and responsibility to the community?
Well, it's certainly a nuanced question.
It is.
And honestly, we might need a lot more information, more context to truly grasp the subtleties. But what are your initial thoughts based on what we've discussed?
I think it's safe to say they've created a system that prioritizes the well-being of the child, but within a framework that really upholds their values.
Right. It's not just about the child in isolation.
Exactly. It's about the child within the context of their culture. And it's all about ensuring the continuity of their traditions, their ways of life. And that multi-layered approach, starting with the family, then the community, and even extending to the temple system.
Yeah, it's pretty unique.
It really highlights this idea of shared responsibility, something we don't see that often in other cultures.
Absolutely. This deep dive has certainly given us a lot to think about. Different ways of approaching child rearing and the complex interplay between individual choices and the good of the group.
It really has. So to our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep exploring. Look into different cultural approaches to child rearing. See what resonates with you, what challenges your assumptions. It's a fascinating topic that deserves deeper thought.
Couldn't agree more. Always more to learn.
Always. And on that note, we'll wrap things up here. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic to explore. Until then, keep those minds curious.
And keep asking those tough questions.
Absolutely. See you all next time.
See you then.